Hello and welcome to the Anside podcast, the show that talks about all things disc golf. From weekend rounds of our mates to the Pro Tour over in the States, we've got you covered all from an amateur perspective. My name's Rob and I'm here with my co-host Dale.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good, Dale. The lockdown is finally ending, at least for disc golf. We've got a long road ahead of us, but we've got some dates so we can get back out in the course. So I'm very excited this week.
You and me both, bro. You and me both.
Awesome. Dale, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what they can expect from today's episode?
Absolutely. Well, we have just had our second week of tournaments. Unfortunately, this one wasn't broadcast live, but there's been some incredible coverage from the Disc Golf Guy on YouTube. He's just catching up, so we haven't been able to watch all of it, but we're going to have a quick discussion of what's going on there. And we have got our honourable member of the Amside podcast, Mr. Michael Varro, who is going to be talking about how he got into the sport and everything to do with that. So, yeah, it's going to be a great show, mate.
I'm looking forward to jumping in. Before we do, though, let me give a word from the sponsor of the show. So, as always, the Amside is sponsored by dischub.co.uk. We're 6 episodes in now. You know what they do. They do great stuff. If you're in the UK and you're looking for discs, head over to dischub.co.uk and use the code AMSIDE5 for 5% off. And that definitely comes and supports what we're doing with the show as well. So, Dale, as you mentioned, second week of tour. It was Memorial. And yes, there was almost non-existent cover apart from the Disc Golf Guy on YouTube, who I don't think as a recording he's released the final round yet. So we're just going to sort of skim over the weekend, who we saw in the lead at various points on the PDGA. I'm still getting used to that website, and we can sort of discuss just some initial thoughts. So by now people know the winners. Paul McBeth, he did it for the MPO. But he came back. He was, I think, 14th at one point this weekend. So he just shows that you can never count that guy out, and he's always going to be that in the top.
You'd write him off on day one, Rob.
I mean, hands up, I wrote him off immediately when he had that awful round. And you know what? I've heard through the grapevine that he thrives off people writing him off. So maybe holistically, he'd heard me in our conversation, and that drove him to the win.
No, I'm buzzing for Memorial. He's unwell, man. I love Vista. I love Fountain Hills. One of my favorite courses. I think it challenges everyone. There's water everywhere. The holes aren't easy. And yeah, he had a poor first round, but it's McBeth. You know, I never write that guy off on day one. Would you have written Tiger off on day one if he had a bad round at the Masters? Absolutely not.
No, you've got a smashing point. But I kind of want to talk quickly about the final round. So anyone that was covering will know that Anthony Barela had an amazing weekend. He was top spot comfortably through the first 3 rounds. What's quite interesting, obviously he finished third, still an amazing finish. So you have Paul McBeth, Paul Ulibarri and Anthony Barela. What's interesting is the final round. He didn't have the best of rounds, but no one did. And it seemed like the people that won that tournament were the people that had the best of a worst round. Now, from the coverage we haven't seen yet, we don't know if it was weather, but something was going on. And obviously, I can only assume that McBeth's experience in the sport allowed him to fight through whatever condition or whatever it was that was making people struggle.
Yeah, and I think Barela, I've watched a few of the coverage from day 1 and 2. And Barela, he's such a nice player to watch. You know, he's got a lovely smooth follow through. And yeah, he smashed it. And staying on that, you know, well, not so much Barela, but back on what you said about Paul Ulibarri coming second. I don't know if you've seen on Instagram, mate, but Paul Ulibarri's brother won the MP40. You know, fair play to the guy. You know, he's gone out there and smashed it and brought in a win.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned this on Don't Shoot. Not Don't Shoot, or Running It of Nate Sexton. Shout out to Don't Shoot there, one of our UK podcast brothers. But Running It of Nate Sexton mentioned almost brothers in the sport, and Ulibarri was definitely one that was him and his brother some serious talent in the sport. Moving over to FPO quickly though. So we mentioned her last week, but Owen Scoggins came in with a win on the FPO side. We put out in our story about it almost seems non-existent that she had time off. I think she had a couple of years off and now it's the first year touring back and it does not show. Clearly she was just grinding in that time off. with a comfortable win just ahead of Hayley King. So, yeah, again, in the FPO, similar patterns with the rounds and sort of the scorings. Obviously, that last day did have some issues, but again, it's awesome to see her name on the top of pretty much 2 tournaments now.
Yeah, and it's good to see Hayley King back up there. I just need Hayley King to start making moves on day one, because once again in this tournament, she left it to the last day to make that chase. You know, and I think she could be up there with Paige Pierce. Obviously, she wasn't in this tournament, but she could be up there with Paige and Kat. But I think the first 2 tournaments or a couple of tournaments of the year, she just left things a little bit too late. But you know, we're very, very early in, so I'm sure throughout the season we'll see her making charges.
Absolutely. And wow, that is really it on Memorial coverage. Like we said, there was nothing out there. So that's our 10 cents for you American listeners. Okay, so let's jump into the bulk of the show. We've had some amazing guests already. We've had Isra Adaholt, we had Nate Sexton, but this week we have our friend Michael. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi guys. Happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. So, a few keen listeners of the show might not have heard your name, but there's a couple of stories, some comical stories that we've talked about in the past that definitely involve you. So you're a guy that we play our rounds with when we're able to every week. But an interesting thing about yourself and the reason we wanted to get you on the show today is that you're a slightly older gentleman, you've aged extremely well, but you're an old gentleman. So you're 45, but you've just picked up the sport this year. So it's safe to say that you've come into disc golf later in life, and I think we really want to explore that topic.
Okay, that's great, and thanks for having us.
That's all right, mate. You know, thanks for coming on. First of all, you know, it's been great to have you on board, and looking forward to it. But I'm very interested, Michael. Obviously, you said you come in later on in life. How did you start playing disc golf? Why did you start playing disc golf? And talk us through that journey.
I will tell you through my journey. Only if you promise to mention that I'm later in life again at least one more time in this podcast. Yeah, I think it's because I started, an age a bit older than many of my other players. So how did I get into it? One day I think I went for a walk in a park to just clear my head, and I came across a bunch of guys, as far as I could tell, throwing frisbees at something. And I stopped to ask them what they were doing, and they mentioned that they had what I now know to be a travelling basket, and they were playing around the disc golf. And a conversation ensued. I thought this was interesting, and they tried to recruit me. And I think Facebook addresses were changed, and then I kind of forgot about it for a bit. But then during lockdown, as you probably mentioned before, the club at Chelmsford where we play has come into fruition. And one Sunday morning, I think I was just at a loose end, and I just thought, oh, I've seen a post, there's something going down, so I will go down. And I turned up. It was a strange one, because part of the reason I went, I think, is because I played football, and I'd had quite a bad injury, I think, a few days before, that my left arm, I couldn't really move it at all. So I thought, oh, well, this will be gentle. I'll just go and watch and see what it's like. But the president of the club put a putter in my hand and said, come and join in. I threw it. I could throw it with an effectively not moving left arm, which was good, and pretty much hooked from that moment.
Yeah, awesome. And a really interesting thing about that story is that the first time you rocked up to the disc golf course was the first round I'd ever played properly with the Chelmsford club. So I showed up on time. I think that's important to say. But yeah, it was the first round. It was the first time I'd ever used a putter, like you said. The same guy that gave you a putter gave me a putter on that exact morning. I think you came in about the ninth hole. So we played the short course. So those that don't know, Chelmsford, which is the majority of you, there's there at that time there was a reds and a blues. There's the short and then the long. I think we just finished the shorter holes, and you sort of rocked up and said, hey, I'm a bit late, but I've got a dodgy elbow or dodgy shoulder, and I'm happy to either watch, or if you if you humour me, I'll happy to fling some discs around as well. And it was great to have you sort of join the card. that morning. So it's interesting that, yeah, again, looking at sort of becoming interested in disc golf, we've got around a 20-year age gap, but we actually started on the same day, and I think that's a really interesting story.
Yeah, I didn't actually realise that was your first round. I think you might have a bit more natural ability than me, but yeah, I will work on my timekeeping, and I'm going to have a warm up one day. It's going to happen. But yeah, it was great, and I went home and was fascinated by what had happened. I had my first set of stats recorded, and I just wanted to get back and drive those numbers down next time.
Nice, man. Well, I think that that first round is always going to be, you're always going to remember it. I remember the first time I ever played my first round, and you leave the course thinking, I want another bite of that cherry. And you know what? Without sounding too lovey-dovey, but I think the first time I met you, your energy just envisaged me as well. I was like, what a guy. And every week, and I think that's why we've all become good mates, because we enjoy playing together. We enjoy rolling up on the Sunday and thinking, you know what? We've got another 3 hours of disc golf to play now. And we just carry on.
Absolutely. I mean, there's your forehand, there's Rob's putting, and I bring snacks. So, we're all bringing something to the club.
What else could we want?
That's the thing. There's some people have a compartment for their putters and some people for their towel. You've got a sort of a little Lindor chocolate box attached to the side of your disc bag, which is always appreciated because, our energy wanes about halfway through a round, and you're always there to help us pick that back up. So
he's also there for us to go back to the last hole to pick his tea towel up.
You do. We were actually we were joking recently when we played around about how your entire tea towel collection is somewhere on the course, so now you're having to let everything drip dry because
if only that were true. My entire tea towel collection is now just different shades of Chelmsford mud in my kitchen.
Brilliant. Okay, well, our listeners will be happy to know that you do have a proper disc towel now. So you're no longer having to use various kitchen implements to to aid in your round. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit more technically around playing. Like we said, slightly older than the rest of the guys over at Chelmsford. Do you think that your technique about how you play the game differs at all from any of us? And maybe one thing that we should discuss is how you've played sport. You're not new to sport. You played sport your whole life. So do you think that you've brought in any negative sort of traits into disc golf from playing other sports, or do you think it's aided playing other sports?
That's a really interesting question. I guess it is different for me. I've never played ball golf or anything sort of similar. I tended to come from a team sport background, football, cricket, played a bit of tennis, those sort of things. And I think on that first day, with absolutely no advice on technique other than a very basic, how do you follow this through, I was essentially doing something between a tennis backhand shot and attempting a cover drive from cricket. What else? The temptation was, and everyone listening to this who plays the game will know that just trying to throw it as hard as possible was causing me to really not get much distance. And I mean, I've mentioned that I borrowed someone's putter, and I know I was driving 3 or 4 times to get to the pin on the short course on that first day. And obviously, my testosterone sporting instincts from the other games I played was to try that bit harder and to really sort of speed it up and go for it. So what I've learned in the time since is that finesse and smoothness massively trump raw power, which is handy because the second part of your question is that I haven't got the same arm as some of the younger guys. I mean, that might not be an age thing, it might just be the way it is. But what isn't going to happen now, in midlife, I'm not going to get stronger. I'm not going to be able to either put the time in or achieve, great strength. So I have to kind of play as much as I can in an intelligent game and sort of pace myself and, you know, work out what risks to take.
Awesome. I think what you say there about the intelligent game, I know a lot of the younger guns in the club try to just absolutely power drives. But what it does, it means they end up in bushes and they end up down hills and OB. And actually, if you're chunking off 70 meter throws towards the basket straight, or at least on target, yes, you might not have as many birdies on the longer holes as some of the ones when their drives pay off. But what you do have is you have almost a consistency. So, you know, okay, with my potentially shorter throws, I can get there in 2 and then get the par, rather than, okay, I could go for a 120-meter drive, but the chances are it's going to do what the other guys do and end up in a thorn bush or something nasty, which I know I find myself in quite a fair bit, because whilst I do have a bit of that distance, consistency and accuracy is something that I'm still working on.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about this game I love is thinking it through, shaping the shot, but then making the allowance for the fact that I've got that bit less power. I might choose a different disc from you guys. I might choose a lighter weight of disc. Yeah, and I really hate getting stung. So I'm really happy to stay out of those nettles as much as possible.
I think it's important, isn't it, to go through that with disc golf. I love the point you make about, you know, you try to throw it as hard as you can, and you basically were finding yourself going backwards in consistency. Disc golf's one of those sports where you don't have to throw it as hard as you can. You know, it's all about timing. It's all about getting it right. You know, recently I've been doing exactly the same thing. You know, I've lost a lot of distance because I've been working on that timing, but I've gained accuracy. And I think that's one thing that we can say with you when we're watching you play, is that you're very rarely going to be off the fairway or, you know, somewhere, a position that is going to be you're scrambling from, because it usually does go straight.
Yeah, well, thank you. Maybe not as far, but yeah, I think over the course of a round, from just never getting into trouble, I pick up quite a lot of shots I wouldn't have heard otherwise. It's funny, the thing about going out really hard and fast and then just slowing down and letting it come. You could also apply to my to buying of discs, because I'm sure many of the people listening went through the same thing. What a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and once I just started understanding that some discs were stable and some were unstable, I bought many discs, expecting them all to be the golden key, and it just doesn't work like that. You just got to just get one disc and just practice your technique over and over again, and that's when I started to make progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really interesting point you talk about buying discs. So I think we've had an episode in the past where we talk about new versus used, and it's a big topic, obviously, especially when you're starting up, because everyone says you don't have to spend the big money, you can just get used discs. But you've been playing for over half a year now, and still your go-to is to buy used discs. And now I know in the past you've sort of said that you quite enjoy the fact that they're pre-beaten in, but can you talk us a little bit about your mentality around buying discs, maybe why a pre-beaten in disc might be a little bit more beneficial to you?
Yeah, I do, and it's not just to save a bit of money. Because my arm speed isn't so great, I tend to prefer to throw a lot of understable discs, just kind of for longer drives. So, you know, I may not be great, but I am quite lazy. And if I can get someone else to have hit that tree over and over again before I have to, especially if it's Dale, then I'm very happy to buy that disc. And it just saves me making those mistakes, so I can make my own mistakes once it's out on the course. I like disc beating in, because there's the risk that if I went for something with a really high speed and a lot of fade on it, it's going to be for me a meat hook when it might not be for everyone else. But you can take one of those discs, and then a player who's given it some, has got their life out of it, it's probably lost the stability they want, then it's a perfect opportunity for me to come along and take that plastic and give it a whole new life.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Dale throwing discs into trees. I think one disc that you did buy off Dale was a Metal Flake T-Bird. Now, only a few months prior, you'd purchased a Star T-Bird, brand new, and you were absolutely hating it because this thing, like you said, for you was just meat hooking and it was just shooting straight to the left, and you didn't understand that this disc that everyone praised above anything else just wasn't working because you thought, oh, it's a T-Bird. Everyone says the T-Bird's the best fairway driver in the game. It should work. Now, it's interesting because you did buy a secondhand T-Bird off of Dale, which was well loved. I mean, it was so well loved that I actually fished it out of a river a few months after Dale threw it in because I managed to catch a glimpse of the Metal Flake. But that's the thing, it had a lot of life. And actually, that T-Bird now is a go-to in your bag. I think every time we played around since you've had that T-Bird, probably 60% of the tee shots, especially on slightly shorter holes, so 100-meter holes, that's your go-to. So it is interesting that new versus used, you do have a very clear picture of the benefits of both.
Yeah. So and that's where I'm looking for rating scales of how much it's been knocked about. I might actually see something as a virtue when it's got a few dinks. And I love that disc. It's my favorite disc. I don't know what Dale did to it. It seems to be remote controlled when I throw that now. But yeah, I couldn't get on with the same plastic first time around.
Oh, I'm glad you're loving it, mate. In terms of obviously that disc, it's the first. That disc was the first birdie I ever got with that. So it was definitely lovely.
Clearly, it's got magic powers.
It's got magic powers. But you
if and when I ever get an ace, it will be that disc. So what's this space?
Nice one. Well, it's interesting talking about obviously buying different discs and stuff. So how have you found the world of plastic? You know, when you're looking at discs, how do you decide, do you know what, that plastic's going to be good for me? Or have you found anything that you really enjoy? Because you talk about obviously discs being beaten in. So you quite a fan of like the DX plastic with Innova. So it's a little bit cheaper, but it beats in a lot faster.
Yeah, I found that, but I mean, I really am just starting out on my like plastic journey. Up until now, I've just bought different discs. It's only now actually I'm buying the same disc in different plastics. I've done that with my putters, maybe too many, but there we go. And a few other drivers now where I'll have it in two plastics, and feel is really, really important to me. Possibly almost more than what it'll do in the air, because if I don't like the feel, I'm not going to get a good release. So that's definitely a factor. One thing, I mean, I haven't mentioned, I did once, I got kind of tongue-in-cheek about representing the older disc golfer here, as I think I don't feel that old, but I did once look at a specialist web page for, I must have been feeling really confident that day, for essentially seniors who wanted to play disc golf, and the advice was great. And what it pointed me to was, you want to throw a destroyer, you can't throw a destroyer, but maybe just try the Blizzard plastic. It's really light, floats on water as well, which is, at the time that sounded to me like magic. But I got from a mutual friend of ours a Blizzard destroyer that was also so beaten in that he wasn't throwing it anymore. And suddenly I could reach, that's the first time I ever really threw a distance where I wanted to, measure it on UDisc and share the picture with my mates. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I remember it.
It made it accessible to me, things I couldn't throw otherwise. And things do behave a little bit differently for me. I've got a Roadrunner that by rights, should be turning right, but the way I throw it, and that's Star plastic, which I really enjoy the feel of. For me, it's a kind of more of a neutral disc. So I'm starting to get a sense of what is my bag, but there's such a long way to go. What I haven't really had time to yet is to start worrying about what the discs look like, because I know there's some beautiful plastic out there. But at the moment, that's very much I watch as a voyeur when all these lovely stamps come out.
Nice, mate. Michael, I am very interested, and I think it is a great time we shout this out, because it's a great moment. That Roadrunner, why don't you tell everyone exactly how you got that?
Oh wow, yeah. I promise this wasn't a link.
No, but I think it's important because we're talking about, you know, starting disc golf and stuff, and I think that's a great story to shout out to everyone else out there that has just started out because it's awesome.
What I did is, in Chelmsford we have handicap rounds, and it's as simple as that. And with a little bit of practice in the week running up to it, going every day, throwing some discs, I did manage to win on a Sunday. And yes, that was the prize disc. I think it's worth mentioning because, I mean, again, it's not just a thing for older guys, but for people starting out in the sport. Handicap rounds are such a good way to really feel like you're competing from the off. It's such a great feeling. You can't really lose because, you know, either you're going to take home some prize plastic and reduce your handicap, or you've bumped it for next time and you've got a better chance. So that's something about this sport. I mentioned I played football and cricket and all these really competitive games, and I love that. And, you know, my youth was spent kicking a ball around, but I've never come across a sport like this where you come along and you're going to be rivals with people and they welcome that. And it's, come on, buddy, let me show you how to throw better. Let's advise each other, not, oh, you're a threat. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to talk about my my one achievement. I'm gonna enter some real tournaments this year, so we'll really see what happens there.
That's all right, mate. Obviously, you've got a handicap win. I've got one. Rob, how many have you got?
Oh, it's just the one ace.
That wasn't a question. The question is, how many wins have you got?
How many wins have I got? Well, I'll have to go back through my U discs. So, I mean, I've beaten you guys. Are you talking about handicap specifically? Okay,
I'm talking about handicap. Right, there we go. Thank you. Moving on.
But you know, you talk about being it's a sport where you play against yourself, and my handicap is the lowest of all of us. So technically, I'm the real winner. You know, I'm the guy taking home the bacon of the soul.
So yeah, like I was saying, it's a lovely inclusive sport. Absolutely no things going on whatsoever.
No, but it is inclusive, isn't it, Michael? The community of disc golf is really good. And just before we go on to the community, I think it's quite important to make a point of what you just said, because I did not know that. You know, that website you was talking about for the older generation, you know, what was on that website in terms of, because there might be people listening to this that could take stuff from that, because obviously it's helped you. And if we can help other people, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name, and Google are going to be getting some odd searches now, I think, when your listeners go after this. Maybe we can post it later. It was definitely pitched at the what to do if you haven't got a big arm. So it wasn't just older people. I mean, it'd be the same for juniors as well. And, you know, just people that, I don't know, as weak as I am. I can't remember what else there was on there, Dale. Advice on what to get that you could throw a good distance. It was missing some of the other facts that I need as a man of my advancing years, like how to deal with chilblains, which has been an issue for me through the winter. So there's always room for improvement. You know, and just how many snacks you're going to need if you're going to attempt a second round of 18 with people 20 years younger than you. But so, you know, I might correspond, but from a technical point of view, it was how to know that you should either disc down or lighten up those discs, how to deal with the fact that inevitably throwing really light discs exposes you in windy conditions, which is something that I know is coming. So I always have to have alternatives, and that's where I might throw a heavy mid-range, almost like you guys would a driver, on that same principle. Plant it in the center of the fairway, give up 30 feet, but know that we're both then throwing an approach shot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Facebook page was scattered with Werther's Originals adverts.
Absolutely, but you wouldn't say no if I brought them along on a Sunday.
Oh, I count on it. I mean, bring some boiled sweets, please. Again, it's a great energy source.
Michael, every week, you know, we have these pros on and we ask them questions, and I don't think that you should be left out. So I want to ask you exactly the same ones. All right.
That's great. I'm wondering if your listeners have noticed yet that they haven't actually got a top 10 player on this week.
Oh well, you've got one more win than Rob, so you're better than
Go
him. No, I know for a fact that you don't know many disc golfers in terms of obviously pros and stuff. But I'm interested in who would be your favourite three people to ever play disc golf with.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you are right. My entry point was I found this game. I love this game. I'm only now really picking up, partly because of your podcast, the tour and who's at the start. So I can't pretend that I can really say the names. For me, it would be, I don't know, Jarvis Cocker. I'd love to see his elegant backhand. Stuart Lee, my favourite comedian, because I don't think he'd enjoy it at all. You know, that's the kind of. So other than, and you two, and you obviously you two as well, just to sort of flesh it out and keep it real. That would be that's now a 5-ball, but that would be my fantasy round. There we go. I've answered it.
Have they got PDGA numbers or?
I'm not entirely sure that they have, but you never know.
Nah, it's a great answer, mate. Great answer.
Yeah, I don't think there was a track on Pulp's Common People where Jarvis particularly mentioned the difference between Innova and Discraft discs, but I'm guessing the subtext was there.
I think for anyone that doesn't know the works of Pulp and Jarvis Cocker, which is possibly for some of your listeners, if they just look at a video of his dancing, they will see a perfect right hand backhand going there as that elbow flies, and I can identify that with that. I mean, I didn't mention it as a thing as an older guy. I rarely throw forearm because it takes it out of my elbow. I'm afraid, I just have to admit, no matter how much ibuprofen I take, I hurt if I throw sidearm too much. So another reason I like understable discs is so that I can turn them around the corner when I really should be flipping them.
Cool. Well, we have gotten to the question that we ask every single guest, no matter who you are, you get the question thrown at you. And that is on the show in the past,
Okay.
we've talked about losing discs. It's a big part of the sport. I know for a fact you haven't lost too many discs. Maybe that's down to the fact that you,
Nice.
like I said, you're a little bit more tactical with your disc placements. You're not trying to run it over the river or the lake at Essex.
Can't reach the river,
But
be honest.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah. That's you've said it. But can you give us a story of a time where you or someone else has lost one of your discs? Because I know that's probably the story you're going to tell for our listeners. But can you give us a lost disc story?
In all the time in the half a year that I've been playing, I have only had 2 discs go out of my possession. One very nearly did, and funnily enough, I think the disc has had a mention already in your series. Yes, that's the one where Dale somehow managed to dance out of the way of the disc he was going to catch that was aiming at his core. And like a marionette, he guided it into the river, but the lake, but we got it out. So that one I got back. Yeah, I've lost 2. One is, and I can almost weep now. I know what I can do with a T-bird. That first T-bird, which I have lost somewhere, but even more annoyingly, not on a course. It's just dropped out of my bag somewhere. So maybe that's a sign of age as well. I don't know. I know. So somebody somewhere, a lucky Labrador somewhere, has found a chew toy that I would desperately love to be beating in myself. The other one, and I will skip over this very quickly. But yes, I did. I did early on take my girlfriend round on a game of disc golf, and I was at the level of starter sets then, so it's okay. This isn't a simmering sore running through the relationship, but yes, there's a DG UK Duchess that essentially turned 90 degrees to the left out of the hand of my companion straight into the river. So that's it. Other than that, brilliant. All good.
I think we've all lost one in that river. I think there is a plan this summer to get a disc golf diver. Now there's a phrase which is hard to say. Over to the river. We know a couple, and hopefully a few of the club members will be getting some plastic back. But so we all remain hopeful. But
I've lost one there.
Well, you lost one, but I managed to fish it out with a net. and now,
Every disc I've put in that river, I've got back.
well, clearly you've got some magic powers, Dale.
Yes, I do.
Essentially, there's an MD3 in that
bring it
river of
up.
Robs, and it will
Gets
never
upset.
let it go.
Well, I was looking forward to having you on the show, Michael, but now you brought that up, I'm regretting the decision. But I think we have now. I think we've now reached the end of this week's episode. So we've got a few more things to just end the episode and end the show. The first one is thanking you for coming on the show, of course, because we really appreciate you giving our time. Not that we won't see you in a week's time on the course, but it's great. It's great having you on the show, and hopefully we've got a couple of people listening that can definitely connect with the stories that you were telling tonight.
Thanks so much for having me on, and I hope I've helped to bring a bit more am to the am side.
You've definitely helped the people who started disc golf later in life, mate.
It's important to say later in life doesn't mean late in life. It just means you're a bit further along than, say, a secondary school child or me. Yeah. I ran out of examples.
Where were you going with
you
that?
pesky kids, why I order?
But anyway, Dale,
Awesome.
it's been a great episode. I just want to have a quick shout out to the sponsor of the show again, Disc Hub. Please go check them out. They're a great sponsor, great supporter of our show. If you go over there, use our code AMSIDE5 for 5% off. And also click the link on our socials, and that helps us keep the podcast going. So we'd very much appreciate that.
Yeah, it's important to say that without them, the podcast wouldn't be the same. So big shout out to them. But Rob, we've got Waco next. Very much looking forward to it. One of my favourite courses. It's a park course with some wooded areas. MPO and FPO, who you got?
Okay. MPO, I've got to go. My boy Calvin Heimberg. He has been on the hills for the last two. On All-Star, he came second. Vegas, he was clutching at the win, but didn't quite manage it. I mean, I'm going to keep saying Heimberg until he pulls a win because it's literally weeks away. So Heimberg up there, but I definitely expect to see Ezra up there, Paul Macbeth up there, the guys that have already shown great things already in the season. FPO, I think it's impossible not to talk about Paige Pierce, but I think Owen Scoggins is here to stay this year. Hayley King, Kona Panis, you've got some great names, but I'll probably go Heimberg MPO, Paige Pierce FPO.
Okay. MPO, Paul Macbeth, 100%. The guy is on fire, and he loves Waco. He loves Waco. That's where he shot his 18 down, or one of them. So I've got to say him. I'm very interested to see how Brody gets on, because I know Brody last year, it was his first ever tournament at Waco. He did a video this year going back to Waco and seeing how well he could shoot. So I'm very interested to see him. I'm going to put one out there. Adam Hames. I think he loves he loves the woods. So I'm looking forward to that. FPO, Paige Pierce. I can't see us seeing she's absolutely smashed it at the moment. But Kat Sarah Hills, so I think she'll be up there. And I think who's my sort of could be. I think you're right with sort of Kona Paris and that. I'd like to see Sarah Holcomb up there if she's in it.
Yeah. I mean, she's an all-star. She was an all-star this year. So I mean, all of these women have got the potential. As we're recording, let me say Happy International Women's Day as well. So it's important that we give the FPO a shout out and grow that as much as we can. We're big supporters over here on the M side.
I forgot one.
Who have you forgot?
Vanessa Van Dyken.
Ooh, this is her first tournament back this year, so maybe she'll come in hungry, ready to take a win.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll discuss it at some point.
I'm sure we will. But until that time, if we don't see you on the course, we'll see you on the M side.